But importantly, as Stand Up to Racism and the far left are out counter-protesting, and you've seen all the footage just there across the country, and agitating concerned local people today, I think it's time we remind them why so many ordinary people are waking up and taking a stand. Syrian asylum seeker Mohammed Wahid. Mohammed, 22, sentenced to 12 years for raping a 12-year-old girl above a Birmingham shop, grooming her with crisps and vapes. A Congolese migrant, Anisit Melea, 41, handed 10 years and 10 months for raping a 15-year-old girl, leaving her pregnant. He'd been granted asylum after dodging deportation multiple times. And Afghan asylum seeker Sadiq Nigzad, 29, locked up for 9 years, plus an extended licence for raping a 15-year-old schoolgirl in broad daylight in Falkirk, claiming cultural differences as his defence while shouting abuse at the judge. Iranian asylum seeker Hamid Kianpanah, sentenced to 9 years for rape, straight out of a taxpayer-funded hotel. Asylum seeker Klarim Kujak, 30, got 18 months for running a cannabis farm. The ethnic Albanian who was raised in Serbia and moved to the UK aged 13, granted leave to remain after claiming he forgot how to speak Serbian. Walid Mohammed and Yusuf Ahmed, sentenced to 40 and 45 months for a brutal assault that left shattered bones of innocent victims. Afghans Zemal Khan and Zishan Bangist each got 3 years in the clink, and Safer Rahman Ahmadzadi 10 years for human trafficking and sexually abusing boys in a network that smuggled thousands. So much for being vulnerable refugees seeking asylum. These are just some of the 312 so-called asylum seekers charged with 708 offences last year. These sentences show the rot runs deep, with foreigners overrepresented in sex crimes by up to 3.5 times. Borders in our country are wide open, aren't they? Vetting is a joke, and our kids and women are paying the price for this. This wasn't just a list. It is a crisis exploding in the faces of British people, and a failed asylum setup dumping unvetted, dangerous men into neighbourhoods up and down this country. And after all of that, the far left were out yesterday defending the ongoing crisis and spinning this into a racism campaign when it's nothing about that. It's about protecting women and girls. Yesterday, our GB News reporter Sophie Reaper was assaulted live on air by some far-left thugs holding paid for, in my opinion, Stand Up to Racism placards and Palestine flags, which police say they are now investigating. She was swarmed for simply crossing the road to interview them at an Altrincham demo. So much for the Be Kind left. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, you are quick to blast far-right thuggery every opportunity you can. But far-left mobs attacking journalists and agitating locals across the country? Well, you've got crickets there, haven't you? Even when local Labour groups, people in your own party, are engaging with these far-left groups, none of the Labour top brass have had anything to say. Well, I wonder why. The GB News reported live from protests outside hotels in Liverpool and Solihull today. Salman Mirza from Stand Up to Racism told our reporter Jack Carson why he took part in the pro-migrant demonstration in Solihull.
I don't blame them. I blame a lot of the politicians who aren't sitting down with these folks and us together in a room to have a good discussion. Because I've gone across the road and chatted to them and we've had a civil conversation. And no, I haven't convinced them yet, but I'm optimistic that over a period of time we can work together. I mean, these hotels, nobody was using them. They were hemorrhaging financially, and I'm not happy that these hotels are being used. Neither are the asylum seekers. They want the right to work. You know, I've been part of different campaigns where we're saying, look, you know, if somebody's claiming asylum, give them the right to work. They want agency in their life. They want to pay back to this community who's given them sanctuary. Who wouldn't?
OK, well, it's been a weekend of protest, hasn't it? Let's get the thoughts of my panel: former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards, former Scotland Yard detective Peter Bleksley, and journalist Linda Jubilee. Linda, I'd like to start with you. I read that list out there because I feel like Part of the left, not all of the people on the left, by the way, part of the left, and I call them the far left for a reason, have forgotten that there are genuine people who are very concerned. They have seen headlines talking about that list of just a few of those of the crimes that have been committed over the last year, and are concerned. They're concerned.
They're massively concerned because we know that many of the men in the hotels, for example, and some of the men who are living outside in the community come from a completely different cultural background to us, and they regard women, you know, I hate to say it, and someone's going to call me out for this, but they look at women in a completely different light. I know from my work as a foreign correspondent, particularly in the Kosovo crisis in Eastern Europe, that authorities paid close attention to actually parachuting large groups of people into a community was not of their culture. It's a very dangerous thing to do. We have acknowledged that for decades, and now we have it going on in our midst. And the problem is, and my family comes from an area of West London where they've seen these hotels grow and grow and grow over years, that no one paid attention to any of these people, and that's what's brought it to boiling point.
Paul, you know, look, I don't want the point here to be that all people who come here illegally are rapists and commit crimes, because not all of them do. But there is a right for local people to feel concerned. We have seen, in my opinion, Epping was a perfect example of people from the far left being bussed in with paid-for signs. They were not from the local area, and I believe they were just agitating local people. Surely, in a democracy, we need local people to be able to express their opinion without outside agitators in order to make sure there's some change in their local areas.
I think that's true on both sides. So there are agitators on the far left and on the far right who want this to be a summer of rioting and trouble for their own political purposes. You've listed a series of terrible crimes, each of which I believe led to conviction.
That's right, yeah.
And so the criminal justice system is doing its job, and these people should be arrested, as all people should be if they assault women or commit these types of crime. The sign that it looks like somebody was brandishing that hit Sophie on the head had socialist worker written at the top of it. From the optics I've seen, the police will go over this with a fine-tooth comb. And that tells you something important, which is these stand-up to racism demonstrators, behind that, this is what's known as a front organisation, and behind that is the Socialist Workers' Party, which does not believe in parliamentary democracy, that believes in world revolution and is driven by the ideas of Marx and Lenin. So that's nothing to do with migrants or anything else. They want to bring down
the only thing I will say, Stand Up to Racism is funded partially by trade unions as well, which have links to the Labour Party too, and that local Labour group have supported.
I think there's one or two branches that have sort of subscribed to, because as Lenin said, there are useful idiots that will support this idea. That's what a front organisation is for. It's designed to bring people in who think, well, I don't think we should be quite so hard on this or that, and they get drawn into these activities and then put into the front line of the kind of violence you've seen, and the people organising and running a mile, aren't they? So it'll be very interesting to see what the police end up deciding about the Altrincham assault there on Sophie, because, like I say, the SWP are skilled in this. They've got decades of experience of exploiting genuine concern, and that's what's going on here.
Peter, difficult stuff, isn't it? When you read out that litany of crimes, yes, it might be a small percentage of the people who have come here illegally, but it doesn't matter to local people in their opinion, does it? Because one is too many.
It's really not difficult stuff. It's actually really quite easy if only governments would do their job. In the 1980s, me and my generation were told, don't be racist, accept people with different coloured skin who've come into this country, embrace them. And you know what? We did. Because they ran our local convenience store, they became sporting icons, they were work colleagues, and by and large, people integrated. But what has happened in recent years? Huge numbers, both people legally and illegally, have come to this country. Unsustainable numbers that have put huge pressures on all our resources. The people that come in these small boats, of course, are a very visible and visceral thing that gets so many people, including me, very annoyed. We did not sign up for this level of immigration, this type of immigration, and this fundamental lack of integration. That's what decent hard-working people are worried about.
Yeah,
But you will know, Peter, that only 4% of that mass immigration that happened since Brexit is illegal, of the kind we've seen with these small boats, but 96% of it is legal. And that's post-Brexit. And Brexit was supposed to be about stopping all this happening. So what's gone wrong?
That's a problem too. Can I just say there's a really important point in when I was listening to Salman Mirza's soundbite there. It wasn't the one he used, but I was watching earlier on today. And he mentioned something that I think the British taxpayer should be paying very, very close attention to. The fact of the matter is a lot of these management companies have done a deal with the government to manage these hotels. Now, no hotel that's actually making a good living took up the government contracts, only those that were failing businesses. So what you've got now is the British government effectively, via a middleman, propping up failing businesses.
That's a very good point.
So there are 2 points here. There's the point with the security issues with migrants, but there's also what is happening to our economy while we prop up businesses that actually, you know, and this won't be popular, but actually some of them should go to the wall.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's only because of this crisis that many of them are still surviving, as we've seen, as you absolutely correctly said there, Linda. Peter, I just want to draw very, very briefly on what happened yesterday. There's a feeling amongst many people, and many viewers watching, I would have thought too, that feel like the far left are the agitators here, that they are bussed in, that they are the violent ones. We saw, of course, Sophie Reaper, one of our reporters here, was assaulted yesterday. As your experience, of course, going back in the police, is there a sense that there is a political side that's more violent than the other, or are they both as bad as each other on both ends of the spectrum?
Well, I think many hard-working, decent people who are merely expressing concerns about their communities changing shape are lazily and outrageously labelled far-right by idiots like Starmer and his ilk, which is fundamentally incorrect, inaccurate and plain wrong. As for the lunatic left that get bussed in with their pre-printed banners and the such like, I have a rather cheerful result to bring to you. And this result is just in. Metropolitan Police, 365. Palestine Action, 0. That's how many got nicked today for being members of a prescribed organisation. And I am very, very swift to criticise the police when they get it wrong, and they do sadly frequently. But today, Deputy Assistant Commissioner Adi Adelakan and his team, blooming well played.
And that is perfect timing, because we're moving on now. There was also, of course, off the back of what Peter's saying there, protests outside the House of Parliament today. But as we just heard from Peter, they weren't about migrant hotels, were they? More than 360 people were arrested for supporting banned group Palestine Action. Check out what happened when our reporter Doogie Beattie spoke to one of the protesters.
You know it's a genocide. You accept that?
Sure, there is so many things happening around the world. What I am talking about is these young people sitting beside you.
Well, I'm not a young person. I'm still sat here.
Yeah, but why would these young people be brought into this?
Why do you think?
Sir, I in Northern Ireland, 25 years of troubles, and they forgot them. They forgot them at the end of it. And Palestine Action is actually a prescribed terrorist organisation.
But it's not, but it isn't a terrorist group, is it? They're the opposite of a terrorist group. They're trying to stop terrorism. That's what they are. They're trying to prevent civilians from being massacred. That's the opposite of a terrorist group.
Well, I'm delighted to say the man himself, Doogie, joins me now. Doogie, what an event outside the House of Commons today, House of Parliament. I actually had been at one of these Palestine Action protests a few weeks ago when they'd just been prescribed a terrorist group. A lot less people. There was a lot of people there today. Can you want to tell us about it?
Well, there was. There was probably about 1,000 people in around the whole of Parliament Square. But in the middle of it is this square of probably about 400 people sitting down with their placards and protesting. And the police let them sit for quite a while before... I mean, they actually gave them a chance to leave. They could have got up and left and walked through the police lines, but they were determined to sit there and determined to get arrested. And as I said to that man there, I have watched this in Northern Ireland, and an arrest for supporting a prescribed terrorist organisation is something totally different than just stop oil and getting a slap on the wrist or getting an arrest on your record. This is serious. This means their education could be affected, any job prospects could be affected, any mortgages could be affected, and most of all, travel could be affected. And the young people that were there were brought in alongside university lecturers, people that were involved in Don't Stop Oil. And it occurred to me at that point that it was almost selfish of them to do it. And the young people were saying to me, no, it won't affect us. It will affect them. There's no doubt it will. And it started off with the police being rather good. They surrounded the whole of Parliament Square, basically a ring of steel around it. And then they started moving in and moving in and moving in. And as it started to get a little bit tasty, the TSG, the London police, came in, and then the Metropolitan Police came in. And when I seen that, and the police go with one facing forward, one facing back, it means they're watching both sides, and it means they're up for trouble. And at that point, they snatched and continued to snatch off the lawn, and it was heartbreaking to watch so many young people who could well tomorrow morning be waking up thinking, I didn't realise that.
Yeah. Again, very similarly, when I was interviewing someone a few weeks ago, I said, do you realise how many years you could spend in prison for this? I'm sure many of them more than what served the you know, I think it's up to 14 years, some of it. I can't remember quite. It's quite serious stuff. Look, the other side of this, Doogie, is a free speech side. Yes. Right? Whether you disagree or agree with the Palestine Action Group and whether they should be prescribed a terrorist organisation, is there an argument to be made that, let's say, if this was a completely opposite government, a far-left government, they said, actually, anyone protesting outside migrant hotels, that is now some sort of prescribed terrorist organisation, right? These pink protests, right? Do you think we're in danger here of advocating for something that we could see a slippery slope to authoritarianism?
No, I don't. I mean, it was ironic that they were outside the House of Commons today. Yeah. I mean, 1688, King William III brings across the Bill of Rights, and in it is religious freedoms, freedoms of speech, effectively what America has adopted and still runs by to this very day. Yeah. And that's what Vance was talking about in Munich when he said, you know, are we on the same page on this? And in it is the right to protest. But when a government looks at an organisation that allegedly breached security inside Britain, then it has to look on a different scale, and it has to say, are you protesting or are you going to hurt the security of our own country? And at that stage, the government has made the right decision to say, we need to look at this. Yeah. And they are allegations, but at all times, protests cannot go too far. And unfortunately, because of the lack of government policy on controlling protests, we have seen Just Stop Oil. We have seen them blocking roads. We have seen Friends of the Earth. We have seen so many things that have got out of hand.
And do you know what, Doogie? I also blame the previous government for this as well, because they sat on it too. But listen, while we're talking about this, we've got some more breaking news. The Met Police has said as of 9 p.m. this evening, 466 people had been arrested for showing support for Palestine Action. There were a further 8 arrests for other offences, including 5 assaults on officers. I want to get some quick thoughts off the back of this with the rest of the panel, as well as yourself, Doogie, here. Paul, I was making that point about free speech. Yeah. Up to almost 500 people.
But don't forget, there was a huge pro-Palestine demo going on in London today, not in Parliament Square. Right. So they made a very deliberate choice to go and be arrested for a terrorist offence. They knew, you know, some of them maybe had some ignorance or naivety, but they knew they were going to get arrested in that space because all the people that wanted to support Palestine were marching somewhere else. Tomorrow there's a demo in support of the hostages at 3 o'clock. So that, you know, that will go off peacefully as well. You know, and there's a protest outside Parliament every day of the week. You know, so we have the right to protest. We don't have the right to support a terrorist organisation. Yeah, look, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for this part of the show. But this is going to be ongoing. Doogie, thank you very much for joining me. Panel's going to be with me for the rest of the show today. So thank you all very much for that.